Welcome, everyone. We are so happy and grateful that you're joining us. Our special guest today is Dr. Robert J. Woodbine, a retired naturopathic doctor and acupuncturist who has studied and practiced a variety of Qigong forms, as well as Tai Chi Chuan with notable teachers since 1985. Currently, he directs UrbanQi Fit, which is dedicated to helping individuals optimize their health and well-being through the practice of Qigong, Tai Chi Chuan, and other indigenous healing traditions. Welcome, Robert. It's great to see you again.
Thank you. It's great to be back and to spend some time with you, Sharon. It's a privilege and an honor to be part of this program.
Wonderful. So you are a retired naturopathic doctor and acupuncturist who continues to teach Qigong and Tai Chi Chuan. How did you find your path as a professional in all of these different healing arts?
Well, the story actually goes back to my youth. When I was 10 years old, my father taught me foot reflexology. He learned foot reflexology from Eunice Ingham, who was the major proponent of foot reflexology in the US. And on weekends, he actually used to take me with him to see his clientele. This was in the Bronx, in Brooklyn, and in Harlem. And he would sit me next to him, and I would see what he would do, and then he would explain what he was doing, and then he would teach me how to do it. So my curiosity at the simplicity and the effectiveness of this modality was just embedded in me. And over the years, as I grew, I continued to practice. One day when this was in Boston, I was walking around Chinatown and, just kind of sightseeing. And I happened by this sign on the wall that said, if you wanted to know about Tai Chi, and I didn't know anything about that at the time. So this was back in probably the late 70s, just come upstairs. So it was a long walk up to this loft. And when I arrived there, it was an open space with bleacher seats. And there were a few people. I sat up on the top bleacher, and there was a senior student describing what this thing was about that I didn't know anything about. Off to the corner of my right eye, I could see someone all dressed in black with shocking white hair, sitting facing the wall at this altar. And I was kind of curious about that, but didn't pay any attention. I was just listening to what the senior student was said. He finally said, if you want to experience this thing, come on down. And I was the first one to rush down there because I was very curious. And I'm standing there and I'm facing the student. And all of a sudden, out of my periphery, I see this person get up. And it was this male who was very, very, very short and sort of shuffled his way over to where we were standing. And he then faced me, and I'm looking at him, and I'm actually looking down at him. And he's just standing there very still, but his eyes had this little sort of magical twinkle type of thing going on. And the senior student said, what I want you to do is I want you, without any reservation, to just punch him as hard as you can. And, in the 70s, I'm pretty young and pretty robust. And he could see that I was hesitating because he said, listen, you're not going to hurt him. Just no reservation, just hit him as hard as you can. Well, I stepped back and I threw this haymaker, and without exaggeration, my fist got about 18 inches from his face, and this mysterious thing happened. My fist went into sort of this marshmallowy kind of warm space and bounced out, and he hadn't moved. And, I just kind of stood there for a second, and I and his eyes just twinkled a little bit more, and he had this little soft smile. And I couldn't reason what had happened. And I just turned around and walked and left. I walked down the stairs and I wandered around Chinatown for I don't know how many hours in a daze because I just couldn't process what had happened. And that was my second introduction to this mysterious thing that I wanted to pursue. So it took many years. I became a father and was working at General Motors in Framingham, Massachusetts, et cetera. I hadn't finished college because I had my son when I was 22, my junior year. And one day I saw this advertisement, and it was by Master Mantak Chia, and it was about Tai Chi and Qigong again. And I said, well, let me find out what that's about. So this was in Braintree, Massachusetts. So it was a weekend workshop. I went down there, and that's how I was introduced formally to Qigong. It was the inner smile practice, the 6 healing sounds in the microcosmic orbit. So I studied with Mantak for a good 10 years. At the time, I was working for Xerox Corporation full-time. I transitioned from Xerox to Digital Equipment Corporation. And that was a 12-year period of being in corporate America while I was learning these Qigong practices at the same time. There came a time towards the end of my, I think it was my 10th year, and this was working with digital, that I went home, and even though I was very successful and was well appreciated by the folks that I worked with at Digital, I went home and I just said, this is something I can't continue to do. I don't know what to do. And I literally sat on my sofa and I cried. And I said, what is my calling in life? What am I supposed to do with my life? And luckily, I didn't try to answer it objectively. I was weeping. But what came to me was this vision. It's actually a memory of me working on one of my clients doing reflexology. She was an 80-plus year woman, and she really didn't have anything wrong with her. She just liked me to work on her feet. And for me, it was my laboratory. When my dad trained me, we didn't do it for money. We did it to be of service. And at that time, we used to charge $12 for a reflexology session. And I would spend an hour on each foot. And with her, I would spend, a couple of hours just exploring and learning. But there was so much joy in that memory that I knew that that was the answer. Not so much that it was reflexology per se, but to be of service based on the things that I had been exposed to by my dad and the Qigong and Tai Chi Chuan practices. Serendipity. The next day I went to work and I was in my cubicle, and across the hallway in an empty cubicle, there was a magazine on the desk. And I was making my cold calls when I said, let me take a break. So I grabbed the magazine. On the cover of the magazine, they were highlighting an interview with the admissions director for the National College of Naturopathic Medicine. This was in Portland, Oregon. I never knew that naturopathic medicine was an accredited profession that you could actually pursue. My dad always taught me that you did these things under the radar because you didn't want to get in trouble, but you could be of service that way. Make sure you always had a job to take care of your business that way. When I saw that and I read the article, I called her and we spoke on the phone probably about 3 hours. And at that time, I made arrangements to come visit for a weekend. They had a student for a weekend type of thing, orientation. And so I flew out to Oregon and got all of the information that I needed in order to matriculate, which then spurred me to go back and finish my academic requirements and get my bachelor's degree. It took me 2 years. I also went to massage school simultaneously while I was working full-time in digital. And at the end of December of 1992, I gave 6 months notice and left digital that following June and matriculated at NCNM as a full-time medical student in Portland, Oregon. I left everything behind and went to study. And it took me another 8 years to finally get my degree as well as my Chinese medicine degree.
Wow, what an inspiring story that is. I know so many people have these kinds of experiences and they take many years to follow up on their impulses. And it's so wonderful to see a person who really followed up and you've made your life around healing. So can you share with us why you think people these days need to be well-versed in some kind of traditional or indigenous healing practice?
Yeah, it's interesting. I became a naturopath. I had a clinical practice for 23 years. And during that time, one of the most interesting things that I experienced was that people would come for help, and oftentimes in desperate straits. And you would help them. I would help them, and they would get better. But then they would go back to doing those things and living life in such a way that would ultimately bring that back. And I would say 80% of the patients that I dealt with behave that way. And I couldn't reconcile why it is that people who are desperate for being well don't necessarily follow through and maintain and sustain the basic things that would keep them from getting ill again. And when I look at the Western model of medicine, it's a dependency model. You have the expert, and people are taught to abdicate their personal responsibility to the expert. Most of us know very little about our personal bodies. We know a lot of details about computers and cars and everything else, but really don't know how to take care of ourselves. And in a way, even though I was a holistic medical practitioner, I was also facilitating that. When you look at the word docere, the Latin word for doctor, it doesn't mean doctor, it means teacher. And what I came to understand is that I think my best role is to teach people how to take care of themselves and not necessarily be the one who takes care of them. And so in retiring from my clinical practice, my focus has been the Qigong and Tai Chi Chuan so that people can be immersed in their own process of healing themselves. And that allows people to be self-reliant, self-sufficient, and to feel empowered.
Yeah, I think the whole medical field and the way that people approach healthcare is I come to you, you fix me. Yeah. And there's nothing for me to do about it. I'm just being fixed. So it's kind of mechanistic also, and it objectifies people, And I think it's just beautiful that you've had those understandings and that you followed through on them.
Yeah. It's a disservice to not allow people to learn how to be at their best, in my humble opinion. And I had to reconcile the need to help people and to realize that by teaching them to help themselves, it's honoring their intrinsic path to wholeness.
Uh-huh. So how does Qigong in particular address the stress of life that so many people experience on a regular basis?
My experience is that it allows individuals to be self-referenced and not externalized. So, stress is not the issue, unless it's the kind of stress where you're getting hit by a bus, for example. I mean, those things you don't necessarily recover from. But the typical kind of stress that we encounter has more to do with how we manage it or how we transcend it. And the different things that I've learned over the years and practiced and taught with Qigong allows individuals to not only manage stress, but to transcend it. And one simple example of that is just breathing. Most of us take breathing for granted, but we don't necessarily understand it so that we do it consciously and optimally. And one of the foundational practices in Qigong is to recognize that breathing is a strategy, that you can consciously be involved in the process of how to breathe and how to breathe optimally. And once you do that, you can grow to a stage where it's more than just the nostrils and the lungs, but it's the universal rhythm of expansion and contraction that you now participate in. Yeah.
That's beautiful. I like that you said that breathing was a strategy. It really gives people sovereignty over their own way of being in the world.
Absolutely.
I mean, many of us, when we get stressed, our breathing gets shallow, quick, and just slowing down the breath can, irrigate the vagus nerve, do all kinds of good things for our bodies and our minds and our spirits. But I like that breathing as a strategy. I'm going to remember that one.
It's interesting because, we call ourselves human beings, but in this culture in particular, we spend most of our lives being acknowledged by what we do. And the stress of doing, of being recognized, of being validated by what you do rather than being, helps to contribute to that shallow type of breathing and stress response. Mm-hmm. And so just the act of breathing appropriately allows you to be, which is who you are, what you are.
What other indigenous healing practices do you use or teach?
Without going into a lot of details, I was influenced by my grandmother. My grandmother was from Colombia, Cartagena, Colombia. And she was recognized as a midwife and a healer in Central America. I'm the first born in the US of my family. We hail from Colón, Panama, from Jamaica, from Grenada, and from Cartagena, Colombia. And there were different ways that she would assess what ails someone. And she would use botanical medicines as well as hands-on healing. I was also influenced by my mother, who was a seer. At an early age, I don't know how to do it anymore, but she taught me how to read candles. And it was pretty fascinating. And between the two of them and the esoteric traditions that my father followed, he was a Rosicrucian and other traditions, and he passed those things on to me as well. So when it's appropriate, I'll engage those who are interested and open to it in options to consider for improving their quality of life.
Wow. That's a lot of wisdom streams coming together in one body.
Yeah. Well, when we look at, I don't know if you've had the occasion of putting two mirrors facing each other. You kind of peek and you see yourself going this way and you see yourself all the way back. I'm just part of a lineage, and my children continue that lineage. And I have always felt blessed to have been born when I was born and to whom I was born to. So I just carry on the energetic trajectory of my family and pass it on to my children and grandchildren. Yeah.
A lot of gratitude
Yeah.
for that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, why is it important, Robert, to harmonize our energy with the seasons? And how can Qigong help us do that?
We are not separate from the environment that we live in. We may not be consciously aware or sensitized as to how it affects us. And if we are, we kind of see it or experience it in a limited way. You know, if it's a hot, humid day, we feel a certain way compared to, you know, perhaps a balmy spring day or a frigid winter day. And we wear enough clothes and we have enough distractions that we kind of dismiss how we respond to the environmental stressors. Stress is not always a negative thing. It's a stimulus, right? So we're stimulated by the environment. There are even more subtle energies that affect us that we aren't aware of. But, you know, we talk about lunacy, for example, and and how people are affected by the full moon or the cycles of the moon. But we still kind of dismiss that. Qigong, what it does is that it brings into focus a level of awareness that aligns your relationship with how nature affects you seasonally. So, depending on the season, our bodies respond differently. What certain Qigong practices, and one in particular called the Four Seasons Medical Qigong, do is that it provides you with breathing strategies as well as movement strategies that over time as you practice sensitize you to your conscious relationship with the environment as it changes. Right now we're in winter, and by the time this is broadcast it'll be spring or early spring. In winter things tend to congeal and get more constricted and restricted. In spring, things tend to begin to blossom. And in summertime, it's full blown. And then in fall, we start to see the receding energies again. And so those have effect on us physically, mentally, and emotionally. And the Four Seasons Medical Qigong practice allows you to be in harmony with it rather than being affected by it in any negative way.
Wonderful. I know that our audience is looking forward to practicing the Qigong set that you're going to teach us for the spring season.
Yes.
So I would invite you to share that with us. It would be wonderful.
Wonderful. So here we are in preparation for my demonstrating and having you follow along with me with the spring set for the Four Seasons Medical Qigong. I'd like you to stand with your feet shoulder width apart, toes pointing forward, knees soft. And we're going to begin with the first pattern, which is left-right single lifting of the arms. As we begin, I just want to mention that if you're not sure where your liver is, it's on the right-hand side, just behind the lower part of the rib cage on the right-hand side. So we're going to be emphasizing the liver, but in order to keep balance throughout this process, we also will acknowledge and play with the spleen, which is on the left side, mostly posterior. Okay. So let's begin by inhaling, palms coming up, exhaling, palms going down. Left palm stays facing down while the right arm begins to float up as we inhale. When we arrive at the level of the shoulder, we exhale, focusing on the elbow. We then inhale and exhale, leading with the elbow. As the right arm begins to descend, the left one ascends as we inhale. Elbow leaves, we turn over, exhale. Inhale and exhale, allowing the elbow to lead, relaxing the wrists. As the left hand starts to arrive, the right one begins to ascend as we inhale. elbow leads, turn over, exhale. And there's just a little bit of tension between the left and the right palm. We inhale and exhale. Notice as the elbow comes down, there's a slight compression anteriorly to gently squeeze the liver. Inhaling on the left, exhaling. Inhale, our focus of attention is on the organ, this time the spleen on the left. We exhale. Now, in the Four Seasons medical Qigong, there are sound frequencies that are also used to facilitate the softening of the organ. So this time on the exhalation, we're going to make the sound for the liver, which is spelled XU, but pronounced shu. So we exhale. Inhale on the left. Exhale on the way up, gentle stretch. Inhale, and when we exhale, the sound for the spleen is fu. We'll do one more repetition of each. Inhaling, exhaling. Inhaling. In. Out. In. So that was the first pattern of the spring set for the Four Seasons Medical Qigong. We're going to transition now to the second pattern, which is white ape plucks the peach. We inhale, turning to our left with the right palm facing up. We scoop up, and then the elbow leads, creating a gentle traction around the liver. Exhaling, turning the torso as far as is comfortable. On the way down, we exhale. When we reach shoulder height and pass it, we then exhale. As the right palm arrives on the left, we inhale, scooping up. Exhale, the elbow leads, turning. As the left arm descends, inhaling, exhaling, inhaling, exhale, picking your peach. Inhaling, exhaling, inhaling. Elbow leads, exhaling, pick your peach. Swivel the torso and the hips. Inhaling, exhaling. We inhale, exhale. Inhale. Here we can use the sound as we exhale for the liver. Inhaling, exhaling, inhaling. For the spleen, inhaling, exhaling, in, in, out, in, So that was the second pattern. Third pattern is low Han bows. You can have a slightly wider stance, toes still pointing forward. Allow the arms to descend. Take your right forearm and just bring it to gently touch just below the rib cage on the right. Going to turn to your left as you inhale. Coming over at an angle, exhaling. So as the torso bends, it gently compresses against the liver. And wherever the left hand lands is okay. It doesn't have to be all the way down to the floor, to the ankle. It's whatever flexibility you're comfortable with. We inhale. And as we exhale, we come to the center, gently bending the knees. And now as we come up, inhaling, bring the left forearm, gently touching the front of the left rib cage. We turn, inhaling. Come over. This is at an angle. Exhale. Left forearm gently compresses energetically against the spleen. Relax the shoulders, knees are slightly bent for comfort. Inhaling. Exhale to the center. Inhaling, coming up. Right forearm for the liver. Turning to the left, inhaling. Left palm scooping over. Left palm coming over to wherever it comfortably lands on the right leg. It could be all the way to the floor, but doesn't have to be. You want to be relaxed. The idea is that you are relaxed enough so that you can actually feel the organ. So it's not an acrobatic experience or muscular experience. We exhale to the center. We inhale. Left forearm for the spleen. We turn to the right. Right palm facing up. Inhaling. Scooping over. Right palm coming over to wherever it comfortably lands on the left leg. Inhaling, shoulders relaxed. Exhale to the center. Inhale, coming up. Right forearm by the liver. Turn to the left, left palm facing up. Inhaling. Turning to the right, gently compressing against the liver. Inhale. Exhale to the center line. Inhale. Spleen, turning to our right, right palm up. Exhale, coming over to the left. Inhale. Exhale to the center. And we come back up to our neutral stance. And we end with the last movement, which is Zheng Wan, up and down. So you can place both palms together. In essence, you're doubling the energy of the Lao Gung energy centers of the palm, and you place them comfortably on the abdominal area. And we circle gently and comfortably, clockwise fashion, or in the direction of peristalsis for the large intestine. It can be anywhere from 6 to 12 times. You can also spend a little more time on the liver itself. Again, this is the spring set for the liver. And when you're done, separate, keeping the palms touching with the body, go behind, down to the buttocks, the thighs, or the hamstrings, to the heels around the side, front of the foot, and then on the inside. And coming back up and repeating again. Knees are soft, shoulders relaxed. And coming back to the solar plexus area, separating all the way back. Buttocks, hamstrings, back of the knees, calves, heels, around the sides of the feet, toes coming in on the inside. We'll do one more. I'll show you a variation. Instead of having the palms touching, we can have the palms facing up, and we're using the edge of the pinky. There's a different sensation that when you play with this at home, you can experience. Nothing that we're doing today will cause any harm or imbalance in your energy. It's just another experience. And you can see how that feels just on the liver side when you do it. And then we separate again. Good. And so we'll end with a couple of strategies for this seasonal set. The outer expression of the liver are the eyes. So if you rub your hands and palms warm, you can then palm the eyes. You can circumnavigate the eyes 36 times in one direction. And then reverse that 36 times. Warm the hands again. And you can take the edges of the index fingers and massage the eyebrows, underneath the eyes. And then the last strategy that we'll use is to massage. And I'll have to stand up this way because you won't be able to see my feet. Hopefully you can see my leg. There's an acupuncture point called yin and jiao, or spleen 6, and it's the meeting place for the yin meridians that come from the legs and go up to the body. The way to measure it is to take the outside of your pinky and place it on the mound of the medial malleolus, or the ankle, and where the outside of your index finger lands, just slide that back till it falls off the bone here, and just massage it. You don't have to massage for more than 30 seconds to a minute. And that stimulates not only the liver meridian, but also the spleen and the kidney meridian. And you would do the same on the opposite leg. When you do this regularly, it also helps to balance the energetic flow of those 3 meridians and the associated organs with them. The last thing that I'll leave you with this practice is a breathing strategy. In winter, the external energy tends to be constrictive, and our energetic field also tends to be constricted. So a breathing strategy that you can use to augment and build up your Wei Qi, or your auric field, is to exhale longer than you inhale, okay? And thereby pushing out, expanding your energetic field. As we go through spring, the beginning of spring in particular, the energy starts to expand as the seasons change. And so we can maintain that same breathing strategy, which is to exhale longer than inhale. But as we continue through the spring season, then we want to balance that out and have equal inhalation and exhalation in preparation for the next season, which is summer. And so I will leave you with that. And hopefully you have a great time playing with these 4 patterns for the spring set of the 4 Seasons Medical Qigong. Thank you very much.
Wonderful. That was so great. It's always, even after all these years of practice, I always find it incredible that you can do such simple conscious movement with breathing and immediately experience the benefit.
Yes.
So
yes.
Thank you so much for that.
My pleasure.
I know that many in our audience would like to follow up with you. Could you let us know about your online classes or events and share with us your website?
Sure. The website is UrbanQi That's UrbanQi.com. And if anyone wants to get in touch with me directly, they can email me at urbanqifit@gmail.com. On the website, you'll see a page for classes. I teach regularly on Wednesday mornings and Saturday mornings. Saturdays is in person at St. Mary's Episcopal Church here in Harlem, New York. And on Wednesdays is virtual. I also have private students from as far away as Alaska and even in Colombia that I teach virtually. So we can always arrange that which is mutually beneficial for us in terms of time and schedule. So I look forward to hearing from you.
Wonderful. So I would like to remind our audience that if you're interested in purchasing the premium access to the summit, which includes unlimited access to all of the summit sessions, transcripts, and bonuses, you can click on your screen. And thank you so much, Robert Woodbine, for such an informative session and for sharing such an inspirational story and your lineage with all of us. And thanks to all of you out there in the Shift Network audience for listening. We couldn't do these events without you. Thanks.
Thank you.